Welcome to this week of physical science. We're going to be learning about something called simple machines this week. And the concepts that are in here are really going to describe how we can use tools to make our work easier. The key thing to understand about this week is that work has a very specific definition. You are adding energy to a system, and because energy is conserved, you can't ever get out of doing work. So machines make your life easier, but they don't do your work for you. This shovel is a good example. This shovel can be what we call a lever. And here's how a lever helps you do work. If I'm going to try to dig here, this might be too much force for me to put and lift up the earth with. So what the lever does is if I go like this, it allows me to use less force to do the lifting. But it didn't get me out of work. If you think about the distance various parts moved, I had less force pushing here, but look how far down the end goes. It goes from here all the way to here. So I'm going to represent that small force by putting a pretty small F over here. But notice the distance it moved. It moved where I was pushing a really big distance. So I'm going to represent that as a big D. So I was able to push over a large distance and get a small force. What about where I was actually doing the work though? The grass. Look how far the grass actually moved. It started here and only moved a small amount. Well, in that case, I only got the grass to move a small distance. But because it went up, it actually put a big force on it. So it's like I've got this trade-off. Little force, big distance, big force, little distance. And that literally is the trade-off. You can take a small force and push it a long distance, and you do work, because work is force times distance. The simple machine basically gives you a choice. You can convert that small force and big distance into a large force that acts over a short distance. So that'll be the theme you see on all these simple machines. If we're trying to maybe lift something we can't, something that's too big a force for us, the simple machine will move that thing a small distance for us. But we're going to pay for it by putting the small force we can do, and we're going to be using a much larger distance to move it. The reason for the trade-off is because work is the amount of energy we're putting into the system. We don't put any more or less energy in. We're just swapping force and distance to put the same amount of energy in and do the same amount of work. So I'd like you to watch for that as you look at the various things in this week's videos and on this week's worksheets.